Thanks for joining me today. I'm Aaron Rutten, and it is my mission to help artists like you enjoy digital art and learn some new skills along the way. Today I'm going to be doing a painting in Corel Painter 2021, and this painting is going to be based off of a reference image that was generated by artificial intelligence. So let's go ahead and jump right in. What I have here is just kind of a rough sketch based on that image. I suppose I could have brought it up on the screen too to show you. So here it is. If you don't know what Artbreeder is, it is an online application where you can load in your own images or just kind of mash together images from different categories to create a unique image. So this is just kind of analyzed skies and beaches and silhouettes and things, and through playing with some sliders I end up with something like this, which I think looks really cool. I see some characters here, and so I'm going to do a painting based off of this. I'm not going to copy it exactly, but I will use it as my guide. So we'll go ahead and get started on the painting as soon as I check out these comments. Steven says, good evening. Good evening, Steven. I'm in the Seattle area, so it's around 10:06 a.m. here. Grazia says, good evening is perfect. Good to see both of you in the chat there. Feel free to comment in and let us know where everyone's watching from. Okay, so enough talking from me. Let's do some painting. I have a color gamut mask that I selected here. If you want to know about color gamut masking, you can search my other channel for that. I might have one on this channel too, but you could just search for Aaron Rutten color gamut and it should come up. It's just a technique of painting where you can limit your color palette. So I've gone ahead and just filled my canvas with kind of this bluish color, which I see in my reference photo. Again, I'm not going to copy the reference photo exactly because this gamut might not exactly match the reference photo. So I'm going to use my digital airbrush here. And I'm not going to sample colors from the image, although I could. I want to have a little bit more control here. So I'm going to take one of these brighter colors here. We know that along the horizon it's going to be a bit lighter. So we can kind of fade in something nice like that, have it come down into the water. We know that the top is going to be a little bit vignetted, so get some of that color. And there's this weird cloud thing floating here. And there are lots of other anomalies or imperfections in the image. Like, I had to go in and really clean this up a lot compared to the original, because the original didn't have a straight horizon line and so it just didn't make sense. So I had to do a little bit of work there. I added in some rocks and other features that I think are interesting. So I don't know that I necessarily want to keep this because it's kind of weird. But then again, it's kind of a surreal painting, so, or a surreal reference, so I might as well use it. But right now what I want to do is I just want to kind of block in all the different colors and just basic features, and then I'll go through and add more detail later. Sorry about the late start on the live stream. You know how that goes. You get it all set up and then something doesn't work. I had tried to test it, and then in doing that, it made my live streaming software think that I had already started and stopped the live stream. So then I had to go in and like manually set something up again, but fortunately, I'm getting pretty quick at that stuff, so it wasn't too bad. There's a little bit of sun over here on the horizon. This canvas layer I'm just using for my sky, but I'll go ahead and put a sun in here. Now in the reference photo, which I don't have loaded up here. So we'll just zoom into it this way, so then you can see what I'm looking at. I do have the sun there on the horizon. So because that's kind of a small feature, and right now I want to be a little bit more zoomed out, I'm not going to put that in yet. All right, I'm going to block in some of those other colors. May as well do it on a separate layer. Let's say that that's sand. And those are just pretty much kind of gray colors. They might have a little bit of saturation in them. Looks like there's a little bit of maybe cyan or green, and then some orange and yellow. One thing that can be really helpful is to view your artwork in grayscale. So in Windows 10, in one of the more recent versions, there's a shortcut just to make everything grayscale. And so that works in any art application. It's super easy. I have it set to one button on my Stream Deck, so I can get an idea of like what the overall value is for that area. This isn't a perfect value scale by any means, but it fits nicely on the screen, so I went with it. So let's say we'll get this little slice of this brownish color here. Put in some of that. I'm going to have my sketch be set to multiply, so that shows over what I'm painting. I'll just have it kind of fade up into that. It does start to get a little bit greenish as it transitions into the water. Maybe the water's kind of shallow here, and then there's some rocks or like a reef or something underneath that. Again, I don't want to copy this reference image. This is just inspiration. You know, I jumbled this together and I saw these characters and it sparked my imagination. So I want to put in some details that are unique to my own imagination, not just copy this. Robert's here. Good to see you, Robert. Something's out of focus. What's out of focus? We got to fix that. Hopefully it's not out of focus. That's how live streaming goes, though. I haven't been doing it much lately, so it's pretty easy to forget all the little technical things that you have to remember. See some details that I wanted to add there on the horizon before I get too far into the foreground. Robert's happy to be watching. I'm doing great, Robert. Feels good to be doing some more live streaming. And I was really into it for a while there, and then I just kind of dropped off, and it's been hard to get back in the saddle. So I'll put in a few of these background details now. I'm really just jumping around here. That's how I like to paint. I also know that I have to be pretty quick here because, you know, this isn't going to be like a 10-hour live stream. So I have to do what I can in a short period of time, and just, you know, I don't have to finish it. I'd like to try to finish it, but I don't think I will because there's so much detail. So I might come back to it in another live stream. Guys are like, he's never going to finish it if he keeps talking about finishing it. So in the background, those land features are kind of a reddish brown. And their dark color is actually pretty close to the sandy color that I have here. So I might just take some of that, try adding it as a foundation. We'll go a bit lighter. And back there on the horizon, I'm going to wait for those other little pieces. I'm going to do this one here. These ones overlap the horizon, so I'm putting them in first. Can't see anything on the instrument section, so there's probably a quality setting that you have to click on. There's might be like a little gear icon. Perhaps you're watching the live stream in a lower quality and so everything looks blurry. In which case, I don't blame you. But even so, this is mostly a custom workspace, so even if you did load Corel Painter 2021, it would look completely different. But fortunately, I do offer lots of lessons and courses that'll teach you how to use this workspace and paint in this technique, which I'm kind of doing today. So we got that background stuff in there. And then what I want to do is I want to make sure that I don't paint onto my sky here. I want this stuff to stay just trimmed to the horizon. So I made a nice selection there. You know, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, you could do in other art applications. You might have to get creative about the brushes that you choose, but it can be done. I've seen people do pretty amazing stuff in Art Rage. May as well use this other camera since we have it. Now, this camera, you know, it gives a nice crisp view of what's going on, but you're going to notice that the colors shift a little bit. Got it pretty close, but, you know. I use that more for demonstrating like different gestures and stuff. But this is a new setup. Why is my face camera not working now? Ah, I see. I got some stuff linked up wrong. I got a new camera for the front, and then my old camera has then been retired to the shoulder cam. So I can have a nice crisp view of everything and it looks nice. Okay, so I will go ahead and I'll make this a bit darker. Put in these pieces of land here. This thing here, I'm not sure if this is a shadow or a little piece of land. I think it's a little piece of land. You know, I don't know what the story is here. It's like there's these two creatures. I don't know that they're necessarily human or humanoid. They might not even be organic. They might be, you know, androids or something, standing on the beach. And then there's this drone or something floating, hovering over here. I just think that's kind of cool. I was recently approached by this company who sells artificial intelligence generated art, and they wanted to do like a, you know, maybe work together on something. But it's just interesting to see artificial intelligence art becoming a thing. So with those little pieces of land, I may as well start trying to put in some of those reddish brown colors. So again, I can use the old grayscale here just to get a feel for where that's at. That little sliver of, I call it reddish color because it's the closest thing to red that I can get in this gamut. Turn on preserve transparency. I'm just going right along the edge there. I need to deselect that active selection. Did I put some weird line on the horizon here? What did I do? That's very odd. Nice black line there. I have to figure out why that's there. It's there because it can be. Okay, well, we'll figure that out. Thank you for defining my horizon line for me, Corel Painter. Anyhow, got that. A little bit on there. Feels good to watch me paint because you know you're not the only one who's having trouble with digital art. So just kind of getting the rough idea that there's some of these colors in here. I'm too far away from my reference image and my painting to really be able to accurately put in detail or see what it's supposed to be or imagine what it should be. I just want to get the foundation in here and then I can build upon that. It's a little crowded here because of this big thing, so I'll probably use this a bit and then I'll put it away. I got it in the palette drawer here so I can get in a lot closer and add in the details. It's one of the things I like about Corel Painter is how you can customize it. So now going into the foreground here, may as well just kind of build on that sand a little bit more, get some of that put in. There's kind of a estuary kind of thing here. And it's hard not to try to follow the reference image too much. It's really tempting to do that, so I'm trying to restrain myself a bit. I'm just trying to think about the features that are there. Like there's an estuary there and there's land there, but I'm not going to nitpick the exact shape or the exact details that are there. I don't necessarily like the features on the ground. They're not very well defined and they're just kind of chaotic. So I could go through and make nice smooth sand and stones or really whatever I want. So I'm kind of feeling that out at this point. You know, it could be that the chaos is what makes the image look more interesting, and then without it, it doesn't look the same. We'll just have to see. Nikki says, I started with Painter 2020 with your tutorials last year, so thanks for your work you've been putting out on YouTube. You're welcome, Nikki. Thanks for watching. You know, Corel Painter is one of those applications that's not like highly ranked among the digital art community, which I think is kind of odd, but you know, I might be biased. But just kind of evaluating it in terms of search volume compared to Photoshop, you know, there might be millions of people searching for Photoshop every month on YouTube, whereas it might be only like 300,000 for Corel Painter. But it's a good application. It does the trick. So I'm gonna want something a bit darker here. And here's where I'm just gonna put in some stuff. I'm not going to overthink it. I just want something that's kind of mottled looking. I know that maybe around here there's going to be some more defined rocks, and then this stuff here will be more, you know, kind of fading into the water stuff. And so because I laid down that airbrushing of that sandy color, this dark greenish gray color is just kind of blending into that with this brush. Bob Ross always talked about the happy accidents, and Bill Alexander said, "Fire it in!" That's what you got to do. Because if you sit there and you nitpick too much on the details and you're trying to draw every single one of these little things, it's going to take you a long time, and it you know, it still might not turn out exactly the way you think. So now I'm going to get some of these colors here. Easy enough to sample from within my painting once I've laid some stuff down. So here there's some little features where there might be stuff underneath the rocks. Underneath the water. Under the rocks. Sweet, someone's doing yard work. Don't you know I'm live streaming? All right. So what's missing here? Let's see. Yeah, what's missing here is some warmth on the sand. So again, we can get a feel for kind of where that's at. Using the airbrush for that. Maybe go more toward the yellowish colors there. Maybe even onto the canvas, we'll add a bit more warmth. Not the canvas, the sky. There's almost these two independent light points here on the reference image too, like there's two suns, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case. I drew or emphasized the sun over here. So I'm wondering if I don't want to do that on the other side. I might keep the emphasis on one side. These are the decisions you have to make. But you can see I made some pretty good progress just kind of blocking stuff in. Steven uses Affinity. You know, I honestly haven't used that yet. I've heard a lot of good things about it, though. And yes, namely that it's not as expensive as Photoshop. You know, everything's like a software as a service now. I'm going to go ahead and maybe blend out some of that land. So I want to keep these layers separate. Just kind of making them look like they fade together. I feel like these could be a bit darker overall. Let's block in the other characters since I got a good chunk of it in already. So I'm going to call this the drone, since it feels like it's just some little robot thing that's floating around. Oh, it's getting better. Now there's construction and yard work. So hopefully that's not too bad on your end. I do have some noise filtration, which hopefully is working. Steven says it's fantastic how much progress you've made in such a short space of time. What's really amazing is that I've made any progress, considering how much I'm talking. It used to be much worse. So these things here, the creatures, they are probably a lot closer to my darkest value here, but maybe not quite that dark. But it's so easy to tweak stuff that, you know, I'm not too worried about it. And they feel like they're, oh, I don't know, let's see what they are as far as their overall color. Yeah, they're pretty neutral, mostly kind of reddish. So to make this pop a little bit, I might enhance some of the colors. So I'll get like a real dark blue there. Do the shadow with that. If that's too dark, I will tweak it. I want to look back at my sketch and just make sure that I'm being pretty faithful to what I have. I'm just kind of filling this in. Blocking it with my head. Watch the dome. Okay. Now all we need is an airplane flying overhead and some dogs barking, and maybe an ice cream man or two. Nikki says, I feel like I missed something with how you changed your hues. Is that your tablet hardware, or did I just miss you using the picker for the sand? Not sure I entirely understand the question there. Some of the blending that happened was I laid down a sand layer, which was just some brownish gray color, and then I painted into it with a brush that mixes as it adds paint. And so in doing that, it shifted the colors a bit. It made blends of the color. So these are character left and character right, I guess, since I don't really know what they are. Now, that's kind of the thing about, I guess, an interesting thing that I've just observed about drawing from an artificial intelligence generated reference image is that if you do see something that looks like a story, there isn't really a story. You know, a story is something that is generated along with the image. And in this case, that hasn't happened. I could make up a story, I guess. This thing's kind of interesting. It's almost like a big bird or chicken or something. Oops, I did them in the wrong order. This is character left. This will be character right. This particular brush, I have to be careful because the dab is kind of a funky shape, and so it's gonna make it hard to draw accurately, but I like that it blends as you add paint, and it is a little bit random, so I can get some unintentional details. Okay. There's a faster way I could have blocked that stuff in, but that's okay. This is how I feel like doing it right now. Alright, so we got some characters here. Do I have every basic feature in? I think for the most part I do. One thing I think I want to add detail to is the sky. Need to have more sharper features like this. I'm just being kind of spontaneous about this stuff too. I'm not overthinking it too much. I'm gonna have some cyan up in the sky here. I could use the airbrush, but I kind of like how this is blending into it. Let's use a blender to blend that together. And maybe I will airbrush it a little bit. I want the sky to look just kind of magical, so it has a mixture of colors there. And normally I wouldn't really rush through this quite as much. I'd probably take my time. But again, I want it to look like I actually did something. So I'm going pretty fast here. And, you know, there are benefits to that. I end up just kind of putting in stuff and making myself be happy with it rather than nitpicking it. Not that spontaneity has value. Okay, so it's going to be kind of hard to see what I'm doing with this sketch here. As far as painting in clouds and details, I got to figure out what the deal is with this line. Okay, I got to the bottom of it. It was a random guide that somehow appeared there. I think what it was is when I was using Photoshop, oops, I used a guide to make the horizon straight, or to figure out where the horizon was. For whatever reason, I didn't notice it because it had the sketch over it. So, there we go. It's the mystery of the weird horizon. So now, to reload my reference image, and then I need to go ahead and make some water. I'll use that guide. Here we go. Take that, you guide. So that we will fill with kind of a light blue like this. Yeah, that'll work. So it just needs to be just a bit different. We've got a nice horizon there. Just kind of planning my next move here. Oops. I'm gonna go ahead and just merge the sand and the water, I think. Actually, no, I don't want to do that. Let's see how we can do this here. Here's what I'm gonna have to do. I'm trying to plan this out so my layer order makes sense. There's kind of this nice reflection thing going on here, because the sun will be right above that. That'd be right on the horizon like that. No, I'm not moving very fast now, but to kind of think as I go along. Okay, so now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just load the color gamut mask on its own. I'm not going to worry about that reference image as much anymore. Just kind of do my thing from here. So, this is the sun. I'm just blending a little bit with this smooth knife blender brush. The sky is fairly flat in most of the bluish areas, but down near the horizon there's quite a bit of character and sharpness, so I want to make sure to put that in. And what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of scribbling back and forth just to mix it up. There's a lot of detail that I'd really like to put in the sky, but I don't know that I'll have time for it, so I'm going to have to kind of limit myself here. Use this light blender just to blend out the bottom of that. And here what I'm doing is I'm just kind of doing circular strokes. If I press down too hard, then I'll really blend that up, which I might want to do in some places if I want to, let's say on the bottom, just kind of fade it together. But otherwise I'm using pretty light pressure for this. So I'm going to leave that for the sky for now and see if I can come back to it and add in more detail. We'll move on down a bit. Have the sun kind of reflected in the water a bit there. And then I'm going to blur that horizon a bit. Do the same thing with that background land. Don't want that to be too sharp. And I think I'm going to have some of this stuff be a bit darker in some areas. I'm really just kind of using my imagination here. And here you can see I can easily get any of these colors, and if I need to make them lighter or darker, I can do that. Make an extra layer here. Just trying to get a nice mixture of the colors there. Try to read some of the comments here while I'm painting some of this stuff. Fernande says, just wanted to say thank you for your tutorials. Recently got my own drawing tablet, so thanks to you, I could immediately get started. That's great. That's what it's all about here on this channel. That's all I wanted to do when I got into digital art, is I just wanted to know how to do it, like what to buy and what techniques to use, what software, and there wasn't a whole lot of that out there, at least not anything that I found that I could really connect with. So I decided I gotta make my own stuff. At this point, my layers are getting a bit out of order here, but that's okay. Might just end up having to merge a lot of this lower stuff down. I don't want to, but I think that might be the right thing to do. Just gonna do it. And make it happen. You can always do a save as, and then you have your version with and without layers. Curious wants to know if you can save art with a transparent background in Corel Painter. Yes, you can. You just need to save as a format that supports transparency, such as PNG, TIFF, Photoshop. And then you have to make sure that save alpha is checked. So like, for example, if it's this image, you go PNG, save alpha, and this would save with the transparent background. So now that I've merged that layer, I can just kind of blend everything together, and I don't have to really worry too much about what's on what layer. And again, a lot of that stuff starts to kind of blend together, and these happy accidents happen. And that's kind of the nice thing about this piece. It doesn't really explain what's going on, and there isn't a lot of details, so I do want to try to keep that in mind and not over detail it. You know, like the edges of some of this stuff just kind of fade out into nothing. I think that's okay. It's kind of dreamy, kind of misty. I'm doing a lot of the work with just a few brushes, you know? There's not much of an advantage to having tons and tons of brushes. Probably never use them all. Most of the brushes I have are just specialty brushes. If I want a very specific look, then I can get that out of that brush. Be a little bit careful with this and try not to overblend stuff. And you end up smudging it around too much, and that's not good. I'm really just blending until it looks right. I don't know, that's one of those things that's hard to communicate. You know, there's all these art lessons that are technical, like draw 1,000 hands, you'll be better at drawing hands, or draw 1,000 circles and you'll be better at drawing circles. But there isn't really like a good technique to build your imagination other than just using your imagination, you know? Something you can do for free, no one has to teach you how to do it. It's just an ability that's there. And if you use it, it'll get more powerful. A lot of being an artist is having imagination. Makes you wonder if what the artificial intelligence has done here is imagination. You know, I guided it, but it's just a concept that comes and goes from nowhere at all. And if it's good and it sticks, then it sticks. If it's not, then it never goes beyond the imagination. So now I'll add just a bit of detail to some of these characters. I'll go a bit darker with that. And these don't need much detail, because they're really just silhouettes. And then of course they're going to need a little bit of shadow here to help them kind of fit in. Now this drone over here is just floating. We do need to reflect it into the water as well. Blend that up a bit just to help it look more like a reflection. Okay. Just kind of brighten up this area here since this is where the most sun is going to be. I just gotta kind of, I don't know, draw an inspiration here. Like, I've been to a lot of places like this because I live in Washington, so there's plenty of beaches with estuaries and, you know, I've not seen any flying drones or any chicken people, but there's always time. Kind of adding some elevated rock kind of things here. And here I got to figure out how the water kind of flows up onto the land. most of the story or the detail is kind of in the characters, so I'm trying to make sure that I concentrate my efforts around that area. Because everything else, like the back, like the foreground with the rocks and the sky and all that, can just be kind of impressionistic. So I just want to be sure that the detail is where it needs to be. And again, I jump around a lot when I paint. That's just how I like to do it. Don't be afraid to use undos, that's what they're for. Trying to get it to look right in my mind. Starting to kind of come together here. Just figuring out what's beach and what's not. I'm just thinking about the direction of the sun and where that's at, and everything is a three-dimensional object, and then just shade it accordingly. There we go. Okay. Start moving into the foreground a little bit here now. I have some rock features over here that kind of contain some of that water. I'm just using those features that are already there. Just looking at the different shapes that are already created and just going with that. Each rock needs a highlight side and a shadow side. See, already that looks better than the reference photo did in that regard. And the question is, do I want to do sand? Do I want to do a rocky beach? Should I do a sandy beach or a rocky beach? I'll let you decide. Comment in and vote. Steven says surrounded by aliens. Perhaps the title for this painting. Steven wants to see a sandy beach. All right, well, that's one vote. So that might, if that's 100% of the votes, we're doing sandy. Either way, I'm going to need to lay some foundation here on the ground, so I'll just do that. Just using a nice textured brush. Septa's here from Venice Beach, California. Welcome, Septa. Okay, sandy it is. Here we go, it's sand time. So, you get an airbrush. You get a nice color for your sand. You figure out where you want it. Then you preserve transparency and you get something like the pepper spray brush. And you got to spray over it quite a bit. In fact, I might even increase the flow, let's see, to 100 so we can really see that spray out. Getting some hens and chicks here. Let's change that to texture. I'm doing is I'm just spraying over this with pixels. As you can see, I'm going back and forth over it a lot of times. I'm getting all kinds of different colors and putting them in. Some of those reddish colors. These are all individual little grains of sand. And then of course you can reduce the opacity of that if you want that to just blend in and be more subtle. It's not going to be like a bright beach, so view it in grayscale and kind of see how that's impacting the piece. I like that. That was a good choice. Good choice, Stephen. Septa says, am I using a Cintiq? Yes, I am. Cintiq 27 QHD. Okay, so where are those rocks? There they are. They're on the land. So let's see. What do I want to do? I'm going to have some rocks that are popping up out of the water. Definitely need that. That way it looks like this is like gradually sinking into the water. Just kind of separating those a bit with some watercolor there. You can really get these nice ripples just by kind of blending them in. Airbrushing it a bit here to get it to look a little bit more glossy. Feel like we need another focal point right here. Gotta get those reflections from the rocks as well. I might use some thick paint on some of this. So let's do that. We'll do a thick paint layer. I get my Wacom art pen. Let's see, we want a knife break look. I don't know that we'll go that light with that though. Now we can add some other colors into that as well. Might find that there's some algae or something growing on the rocks. Maybe even some of that reddish color is kind of mixed into it. I'll do another thick paint layer. This is just adding all kinds of little details and stuff. I will go through and blend this. We'll just blend all that down with the land, so then, or merge all that down with the land. If it's too strong here and there, then I can just kind of knock it back with a blender. Steven says that I make it look easy, but it still requires a lot of natural artistic talent, which is not what I have. Well, you know, it's one of those things. It's like part of being good at art is having confidence, but where do you draw the line between confidence and being realistic about what you're into, you know? Like if you're, I don't know, like I always use the example, for me, music was one of those things I was really into, but then when my art career started to take off, I just pretty much dropped music altogether. And like before that, I'd wanted to be in a band and, you know, I was in a couple bands and played some shows, but I realized like I'm not a musician. Like I can do it. I have, you know, at least some talent, but not so much that it's like worth it for me to pursue music. So you do have to kind of check yourself and be realistic about what you want to do. But at the same time, you have to have confidence and tell yourself that you can do it, even if you don't think you can. Because, you know, where do you start? Not everybody's just born being good at something. I wasn't born knowing much other than how to draw with crayons. There's still a lot of stuff that I don't know. It's not that I can't learn it, it's that I'm not interested enough to learn it. And there's a lot of people who draw people, like characters and stuff, you know, superhero characters, anime characters, stuff like that. Like it's not something I've ever been interested in enough to want to get really good at it. I could, believe me, I could sit there and put all my focus into doing that instead of drawing landscapes. But it's not where my interest is. And so perhaps, you know, it's easy to look at art and want to like make art like the greatest artist you've ever seen. But at the same time, it's okay to make art the way you want to make it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to please anybody. It doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be good. You should just be able to make art for yourself. If you don't think you have talent, it doesn't really matter. You know, there's a lot of people who are considered to be talented who other people can think aren't. And, you know, it's opinions are opinions. But your opinion of yourself matters a lot. And I think that's the biggest obstacle that gets in the way of people having success with art, is that they're their own biggest obstacle. It isn't anything that's real. It's not anything physical stopping you. There's no laws saying that you can't be an artist. You know, it doesn't, there's some expenses that go along with it, but for the most part, you can do it. The reason why a lot of people aren't doing it is because they're telling themselves that they can't do it. And once they stop doing that, then they can start making art. And yeah, you do have to have some talent, but again, like, it's just, quoting Bob Ross again, talent is a pursued interest. I'd like to play guitar. That would be pretty cool. I'd rock out on guitar, but every time I try to learn it, I give up. So really, I don't care that much about it. It would be cool, but not cool enough to where I'm going to make myself do it. And there's people who play guitar who could say the same thing about art. They'd love to make art, but they don't have enough focus or interest to want to learn it. And it's like, you know, I'm a good example of what I'm talking about. A lot of people like what I do, and a lot of people think that I suck and that I have zero talent. And does it matter? No. Like, I'm getting to do what I want to do. So I don't care. Like, I'm never going to please everybody, and I know that. Once you start pleasing the masses, that's a whole different way of being an artist, and I've evaluated that and thought long and hard about whether or not is that what I want. Do I just want to make generic stuff? Or do I want to make some more niche content that isn't highly searchable, but still, let's say I only get 1,000 views. Cool, that's 1,000 people who were helped by my content who wouldn't have been helped if I was just making something generic, like 10 tips for how to improve your drawing, or, you know, how to make better colors. Just stuff like that is just, it's all been done. There's nobody out there making Corel Painter tutorials like me. So that's the kind of content I want to create. Separate out some of this stuff here just with a little bit of other color, lighter color. This is turning out to be a fun one. Luminaria was trying to decide between the Cintiq 16 and the Intuos Pro Medium. You know, I think drawing on a screen is so much better. Like, every time I try to do a review of a non-screen tablet, I just have to relearn drawing while looking at the screen again. And why waste your time with it? If you can afford a Cintiq 16 is awesome. Like, the Intuos Pro has some pros, no pun intended. In a way, it's, you know, in some aspects, it's better than the Cintiq, but I think when it comes down to it, if you just want to draw on something and be comfortable, a nice big 16-inch screen is where it's at. A little tiny tablet that you have to have on your table that you have to then, you know, look up at your screen to be able to draw on, that's no good. So that's an easy choice for me. I think I'm gonna have some of this kind of come up over here like this. Again, you just kind of see stuff and make it happen. A little bit of the sky color reflected in some of those shadow areas. And again, the sun swaps sides, so you gotta pay attention to your light source. The angle of your light source, I mean. So like here, gotta watch out for that. So the Cintiq worked out for you then, Luminaria. That's good. Yeah, being able to have the gesture space is definitely good. Okay, so hour and a half is what I'm at now. So I'll probably go at least 2 hours for this stream, but maybe a little bit longer, we'll see. See how much mojo I have in half an hour from now. Oops, that's not on the right layer. We don't want to do that. You can tell by how the way the paint feels. See if that was a mistake or not. Let's see, which one am I looking for here? I got so many blenders. See, that might be a bit too dark, eh? And it's like whether or not I even want to have this big dark cloud up here. I haven't decided yet. You can just be a little bit more subtle like that. I don't know, what does everybody think? Do you like the big dark cloud to be distinct or subtle or not there at all? Steven might invest in a Cintiq instead of a Intuos for that reason, being able to gesture more, to make larger gestures. Let it go off the canvas here. Steven likes the subtle cloud, cool. Okay, well, that's the time where we're gonna flip the canvas. Whoops, I didn't flip it. What did I do? Did I flip my sky? I'm gonna flip the canvas, just kind of take a look at how it's progressing. Really just kind of evaluating it here. Tweak that a little bit. I'm gonna have this look a bit more distant. That'll create kind of some different planes there like that. I was trying to figure out what else this needs. That's how I know when I'm done with something, when I don't know what else to do to it. Might blend a little bit here. Create some contour to the land. If you're wondering how I'm doing a lot of this stuff, I know I'm not explaining everything I'm doing here. In addition to the free tutorials that I have on YouTube, I also have paid courses that go into detail about how to do all this stuff. Make those features a bit finer there as they're going into the background. I have to be careful because I've merged a lot of stuff together, so I don't want to mess it up. Luminary wants to know what my paid tutorials are like. You know, the best thing to do would probably be to check out my Corel Painter Essentials course, which is free. You can get the free trial of Corel Painter Essentials 8 for 30 days, and then you could probably just follow along with that course and get a pretty good idea of what I would teach in the paid course. The paid course is like 17 hours long, whereas the Corel Painter Essentials course is probably only a couple hours. A few hours, I forget. It's not very long. And similar to the different levels of Clip Studio, Corel Painter Essentials is like the light version of Corel Painter 2021. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and just merge all the characters down. They're just so simple that I don't think it really matters if I keep them separate. Knock them back a little bit so they're not so dark. Flip this back. Again, I'm just kind of thinking about what I'm going to do, so sorry if you don't see me do anything for a minute here. I've got this flat palette knife here. Now I think guess what I'll do here is I'll just try to have this come in a bit. Have that one look a bit more distant. Again, this is kind of like fighting what the AI generated. It may not be exactly what I want. I think maybe what needs to happen here is that that piece of land goes all the way up to the horizon, which doesn't make sense. So it actually needs to be below the horizon like that. That's better. That's what was throwing it off. Trying to find the right brush for this here that I want to do. Just trying to do a nice sharp horizon line there. There we go. Now the sky needs some more work. Okay. Getting the sky looking more the way I want it. Need to do that with down here as well. Okay, so now I think the beach is looking a little blank, so we'll probably put some stuff to look at there. Okay, so I'll start out by putting in some rocks, and then we can figure out what else we want to have on the beach. I'll take some suggestions, like driftwood or seashells. Just trying to get the right color here for this. Some brownish rocks that match the hue of that sand and the other surrounding rocks. Needed a bit of a shadow as well. All right, that looks pretty good for the objects on the beach. I do some driftwood. Do a shadow underneath that as well. Just adding some thick paint to this to create some texture. Deciding whether or not I like this driftwood here. I think I like the one that's off to the left. I don't think I like the one on the right, so we'll make it disappear. I'm just trying to think about what else it needs composition-wise. Well, one thing we can do is use divine proportion just to kind of get a feel for how this is gonna play out. So we can see it needs something. Just naming these layers here so they're cleaned up. A little shell or something on the beach there. Okay. I'm going to zoom in a bit. And give these little rocks some highlights that stand out more so they don't blend in quite as much. Can get near the end here. Probably what I'll do is I will tweak the lighting a bit. What I'm going to do is use a mask here with an overlay layer. Just kind of have the sky brighten up over here where there's the sunset. Reduce the opacity of that a bit so it's not so strong. I'll do a cool overlay as well. That's really what it needed. Yeah, I think I like it. I mean, I could certainly keep going and add more, and, you know, I very well might in another session. I'll do some more thick paint here. That helps a little bit. Robert was waiting for some jets to fly over. Yeah, I think it's kind of otherworldly, so I'm reluctant to put in anything that makes you think about civilization on Earth. Could be some sort of flying craft. See where that might go. Let's have just a little thing up there. Who knows what that is? Could be a star or a moon. It's a good suggestion. That would be pretty subtle, though. Robert says the painting is great. Thank you, Robert. So I think in the distance here, I'm going to add a feature that kind of stands up a little bit. Who knows what that is? At this point, it's just kind of adding more details like this. Group these overlays, because if you sample colors with those overlays on, they're going to make you end up with the wrong color. I think we still need more stuff on the ground. So I'm going to convert that to a default layer. That fills in some of the visual detail there. Let's create some glows. Trying to get the lighting to look right there. With the sun glowing, it kind of goes on top of everything. Might vignette it a bit more. Should probably save this too. Watch, it'll crash while I'm saving. Nope. There we go. That's the ticket. Okay, let's flip it again. It's taking a minute to save. If you're wondering, the size of this canvas is pretty big. 4,000 by almost 3,000 pixels. The reason why I flip it is it just gives me a fresh perspective. And I can see if I like it flipped better or not. I think I like it. What does everyone else think? I mean, as far as it needing anything else. And I mean like object-wise. Steven says it looks good. Couple brighter highlights on that rock, maybe. Producing the white texture on the rocks. Oh, the driftwood. The white texture on the driftwood, sure. I'll have a rock kind of up against it too. Well, I'm at 2.5 hours now. I think I'm probably done with this for now. Say that, and then I'm going to keep seeing little things that I want to go in and tweak. So I'm just having to be very careful to make sure to turn off my overlays. If I don't, then I'm going to end up getting the wrong color. Robert loves the water in the sky. Thank you, Robert. Add a little hint of blue to some of these shadow areas. I'll just kind of liven the color up a little bit. Check this in grayscale also to make sure it's still looking good. Luminaria wants to know what drawing tablet am I currently using. The Cintiq 27 QHD Touch. You can see you got a nice big area to draw on. Now I haven't been using my entire screen because I have all the palettes and stuff, but I can get a pretty big view of my canvas. I can see how it looks full size and, gesture on it very easily. Kind of gone a little too overboard with the blue there. Let's bring it back just a little bit. Yep, I think that's probably going to do it. Do a save as. I won't make you sit here and watch me think about this for another 10 or 15 minutes. I'll do that later, but it's probably what I'll do. Think about whether or not there's anything else to add next time and come back to it, look at it several times, and then I'll know for sure what to do. Sometimes I don't even come back to it. I just leave it as is. Go ahead and just make it pretty big here. Well, feel free to comment in. Let me know if you have any questions about what I did or any final comments, and I'll probably wrap this up and call it a finished live stream. Yeah, I like the way that turned out. If we want to compare it to the original, I will flip it real quick. So let's see if I can make this not take up so much space. That's the reference image. And you can see there's a lot of stuff, you know, kind of in the foreground that's just not very distinct. But it did give him the impression of rocks and stuff like that, which I put in. But I think what I put in was better. It's more focused and you can tell it's a beach. So I got the gist of what's in the painting, or what's in the reference image, but I didn't copy it exactly. So that was fun. That was a fun experiment. All right, everybody, I'd like to thank you for joining me for this live stream, and I'm going to be trying to do these more often, more frequently as I ease back into it. Thanks for watching, and if you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe for more Corel Painter tutorials like this. Have a great evening or morning wherever you're at.